Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. And our top story tonight, relations between the governments of Barbados and New Zealand are alive and well. The assurance from New Zealand's Governor-General, who made a courtesy call to Barbados' Governor-General Sir Elliot Belgrave at Government House. Kareem Smith has more.
Dame Patsy Reddy is on an official visit to Barbados along with her husband Sir David Gascoigne. One of her engagements was to pay a courtesy call on Governor-General Sir Elliot Belgrave. She was also accompanied by New Zealand's High Commissioner to Barbados, Jan Henderson. Dame Patsy exchanged gifts with Sir Elliot in a strong show of friendship between the two Commonwealth nations. She was also treated to a tour of Kensington Oval compliments the Barbados Cricket Association, where she was accompanied by national hero and cricketing legend Sir Garfield Sobers. While at the Mecca, she underscored the importance of good relations between Barbados and New Zealand and identified the use of sports diplomacy as an important part of developing strong bonds between Commonwealth nations.
Sports diplomacy is a focus for our High Commission, and we're very keen to encourage the development and assist you with supporting women and youth players alongside the traditional men's game. It's an important role that sport can play in developing a strong and vibrant community.
The visiting Gigi is also scheduled to meet women from the Barbados business and creative communities at Lancaster Great House. She will also have talks with a gathering of New Zealand scholarship alumni and development partners at the Hilton Hotel. Dame Patsy says this visit is her first to the Caribbean, and it's quite fitting as Barbados is the only country in the region with a New Zealand High Commission. Her visit follows a trip to a number of Italian cities, including Venice and Rome. A lawyer and former New Zealand Crown negotiator, she was appointed her country's 21st Governor-General last September and is the third woman to hold the position. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Thanks very much, Kareem. Frustrated farmers say they are not putting any eggs in their basket preceding this year's annual budget. CBC spoke to several who admit they are far from hopeful. Denise Blackman has this story.
We spent the day speaking to various farmers across Barbados about what they would like to see in the upcoming budget, and the response for the most part was one of frustration. They say that farmers have been overlooked and the agricultural sector has been overlooked despite countless meetings and consultations with government entities, and most of them flat out refuse to go on camera to state their cases, saying that they're tired of repeating the same thing year after year. But we did manage to speak to one farmer, that is Jason Craig. Mr. Craig, who operates from Riverland, St. Philip, has spent 7 years farming, and he says the complaints are valid.
Farmers are frustrated, yes, because sometimes they go to meetings and they hear the same thing, or they may hear an initiative about to take place and they don't see anything happen. So many of them, rather than going to the meetings, don't even go.
What farmers have called for in the past and would still like to see is a better irrigation system throughout Barbados, especially during drought periods, as well as greater restrictions against imported food products, as well as subsidies to support farmers with their day-to-day tasks.
When you get a serious crisis, who would people turn to get something to eat? It would be the farmers. So I believe that much more emphasis needs to be placed on farming. I think that there needs to be some more subsidizing, making things like agrochemicals and different inputs much more available and at a better cost to farmers.
Overall, farmers are not sure what to expect, but they are hoping that this year's budget reflects government's commitment and support to the agricultural sector. Denise Blackman, CBC News.
Denise, thank you very much. And joining us live now is James Paul, the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society. Mr. Paul, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Now, we've heard quite a bit from the farmers that Denise was able to interview in that story. And we want to get some reaction from you in relation to some of their concerns. But before we do that, give us a sense of where agriculture is right now.
Well, I can't tell you that it is really doing as well as it could do. But I could say that at this point in time, we are doing things, and I think that there are some signs of growth, but this is based on the efforts of the farmers themselves. I expect, for instance, in dairy production, we're starting to go back up. In poultry production, we're holding our own. Pork production, I think we have some difficulties, and we need some incentives there. Fruit and vegetable production, I mean, that is an area that is always testing. I mean, it depends on the weather. So far this year, we have not had the kind of weather that's going to cause real problems, but you know, I'm hoping that the rest of the year goes the same way. So the challenge is there, but it is not that we cannot do better.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the big things right now is the budget and what can be done to get Barbados, generally what can be done to get Barbados back on a strong economic footing. Is agriculture the sector or one of those sectors that can do that?
It is a key sector. I would say this. We have maxed out when it comes to tourism. And you know, I hear the tourism stakeholders constantly calling government to put more money into it. But I mean, after the kind of performance that we are seeing in the tourism sector, I don't know where else you're going to put the money. Really, in truth and in fact, we need to invest in those sectors that have the possibility for growth. And when we examine the agricultural sector, along with the manufacturing sector, it really holds the potential for growth in this country. And not only from the point of view of growth in terms of the actual physical size, but when you look at the amount of employment that can be generated from the industry and the possibility of actually increasing Barbados' earnings of foreign exchange, it has, that I think is where the future is, and we are failing to exploit that initiative all the time.
Now, one of the things that the farmers talked about, the budget, the upcoming budget, and what they want to see, they don't sound very optimistic. In fact, they're saying that they're not very optimistic. From the BAS's perspective, what would you want to see in the budget then that will also help to take the country forward?
Well, one thing one of the farmers did say is the whole question of how do we curb the current imports that are coming in that compete with locally produced agricultural commodities. I really think that we need to stop living in this fantasy world and encourage the people in the private sector and some people in the government sector too, who basically import things into this country that compete with local agricultural produce. We have had a war constantly, for instance, with institutions such as the BADMC, okay? And I think I'm satisfied with it that has abated, but it is not where we want to be at the same time. But there are also people in the private sector who fail to work with farmers in terms of arranging for the purchase of local agricultural produce. They will come and tell you that we can't do it, but that is just not true. Because in a sense, if we had a better relationship really with retailers in this country, in general, I think that what you will see more farmers committing to produce more crops in this country.
So from the agriculture sector then, what is your wish list as it relates to the budget for, what would you give to Finance Minister Chris Sinclair and say, this is what we want?
I would really like to see the cess that is supposed to go on upon the milk being important to Barbados and milk production in general going on, which would actually help to stabilize the dairy industry. I would also, from the point of view of the whole question of the agriculture, sustainable agriculture development bill, which you spoke about in the past, we've not pursued it. I really think that is something that needs to happen. I really think that, for instance, in terms of the sugar sector in general, that we need to continue to support those farmers in it, because the truth of the matter is that, you know, we do need to have a crop that will rotate with vegetable crops in this country. And what also we need to see, I think, generally, is that a lot of the incentives that are there for agriculture producers, I think that we need to commit more funds on an annual basis to allow for the timely payment of those incentives. And in some cases, a lot of it has to do with the response time of people within government to what is happening in the sector. I think it can be better.
The incentives that you talk about, is that the same thing as subsidies?
In some cases, yes. But you know, it can take you, people are not aware, but it can take you sometimes at least 2 years in order to receive a subsidy in the agriculture sector. And that in itself is a source of frustration for farmers. And I really think if we are saying that we are concerned about food security, We are concerned about the whole question of expanding this economy. Again, when you look at it, the agriculture sector has proven that it is a viable alternative for young people, even as far as that is concerned. And I really think that we can at least spend some more time, instead of spending our money. I hear the people in Crop Over. It's all well and good to have a nice time, but people have to eat after that. And I am saying that at least the agriculture sector can do more in terms of feeding Barbadians, but we need to invest more in the sector.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was James Paul, the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Sector, talking agriculture ahead of the budget. Well, several people were hurt when two cars collided and were extensively damaged at the junction of Warners and Warners Terrace in Christchurch this morning. CBC understands at least 2 women and 1 man sustained injuries in that accident. They were assessed by ambulance personnel on the scene, but it's unclear at this point if any of them was taken to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital for further treatment. The island's senior drivers will be the focus of a campaign to reduce the number of road accidents. Called Operation Road Wisdom, it is being spearheaded by the Blue Cluster Group of the St. Barnabas Anglican Church. Sharika Griffith reports.
It was a refresher course of sorts for people who attended the session at the St. Barnabas Anglican Church. The audience heard from Road Safety Advocate Junior Jordan as well as emergency response personnel, including Assistant Superintendent Leon Blades. Adhering to traffic signs, lane usage at roundabouts and giving way to emergency vehicles were all topics covered. During the interactive presentation, Mr. Jordan sought to clarify several points of confusion, including the left, right, left rule when crossing a street.
In any country that drives on the left-hand side, Barbados included, you always, without exception, look on your right side first. Why? Because that is the danger side. That is the side where the traffic can hit you easier than the left side. So it doesn't matter if you're turning left or right, you always look on your right side first. That goes for riding, that goes for driving a bus, a car, hopping, skipping, everything.
The fire and ambulance services also staged a car crash, which required using the jaws of life to remove the injured party. Mr. Jordan explains that seeing such a scenario is usually traumatic and was meant to encourage people to drive carefully to avoid such situations. Assistant Superintendent Leon Blades informed the audience that several of their bad driving habits could land them before the courts.
The owner or the occupier or person employed by the owner or the occupier asks you to move the vehicle, you should do that. Failing to do that, the police can be called and report you for causing obstruction. Apart from you going and parking the car on a hydrant somewhere on the road, or going park somewhere where the public prevented access from some person's driveway into the main road, or vice versa. Or if you park to block a hydrant, or if you park to block a person from seeing a road sign, all those things are causing obstruction.
Similar programs could be rolled out in the future as other churches have expressed an interest. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thanks very much, Sharika. Oh, coming up after the break, a government minister saying no to same-sex marriages. We'll tell you who he is and why he's saying that. Stay with us.
Diamond Dazzler, it's time to play. Diamond Dazzler, the new instant $250,000 scratch game from the Barbados Lottery. Available at select lottery outlets.
Secure your future, be financially strong. Since 1983, we have been there for you. A smart range of products, great tax benefits. We're the solution to your hopes and your dreams. The Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union. The Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union. Humble beginnings to smart loans, smart savings. Save smart and borrow smarter. That's the move for me. Stability, prosperity. We're the solution to your hopes and your dreams. The Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union. The Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union.
Hello friends, this is Jeff Shepard inviting you to join us every Thursday from 6 to 7 on QFM for Nichols Bacon Inc. Manor. Always fresh.
Minister of the Environment, Dr. Dennis Lowe, is adamant he won't be supporting legislation allowing same-sex marriages in Barbados. He insists there is an attempt in some quarters to advance this legislative agenda. Dr. Lowe is firmly for marriage between a man and a woman, as he believes in the biblical way of life.
We want our boys and our girls to grow up in a society where they are not embarrassed because they live in a house where mom is a woman and dad is a man. I listen to the chatter among many of our youngsters out there in the community, and I know how they feel about these things. People think that they're not engaged, but they are engaged, and I know how they feel. Mothers, play your role. Be proud of being a mother, even though you may have a wayward child at this stage, because wayward children change.
Dr. Lowe made Mother's Day all the more special for 17 mothers from his constituency as their contributions to family and the community were recognized. The women were the toast of the day during an awards ceremony hosted by Dr. Lowe at the St. Christopher Primary School.
Mothers are important. Mothers are the products of the women of our society. And of course, in our society, we have some outstanding women. As a matter of fact, in the constituency of Christchurch East, perhaps I'm quite sure that other MPs would argue the same for their constituencies, we have some very outstanding women who have contributed significantly to the development of our constituency.
Well, there's no question that Mother's Day is special for every mum, and it was an extra special day for 5 women who brought new life into this world. The Queen Elizabeth Hospital recorded 4 births, 3 girls and 1 boy. The first baby was delivered at 2 in the morning and the last at 5:59 in the evening. And over at Bayview Hospital, 1 baby girl was delivered. Congratulations to all of those mothers. Without mothers, the cycle of life would be impossible, and that's why they should be cherished and respected. And as a means of appreciation, the show Mum, This One's For You was held at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center last night. This year's show targeted mothers who've made invaluable contributions to the country through service organizations. They received prizes and gifts for their hard work over the years. Scores of people gathered as they sat back and enjoyed and watched several Barbadian entertainers display their talent in music, song, and other performing arts. Barbados is joining with other countries across the globe in observing International Day of Families. It's being celebrated under the theme Families, Education and Well-Being. The day is used to raise awareness of the role of families in promoting early childhood education and lifelong learning opportunities for children and youth. The day will highlight the importance of all caregivers in families, whether it is parents, grandparents, or siblings, and the importance of parental education for the welfare of children. Democratic Labour Party candidate for St. Michael East, Nicholas Allen, says transforming that constituency is priority. Speaking at the St. Giles Primary School, the candidate said he'll be looking at ways to encourage a more entrepreneurial spirit among young people. He also says residents can expect better road conditions.
We held a walkthrough with the Minister of Transport and Works in April, and he has promised that we will get some of our roads in St. Michael East in the Roberts Road. There's a major road at Dean's Land, so we will have some of these roads fixed very shortly.
Barbados' Villa Market is attracting more buyers and renters, and a UK-based company, the Villa Collection, has given its stamp of approval, with its owner Andrea Lovering saying Barbadian villas rank high among others in the Caribbean.
The quality of villas are fantastic. You've got the modern minimalistic villas right through to the Caribbean rustic villas. Obviously, you know, if you're staying at Sandy Lane, you've got the Proprietors Beach access. Royal Westmoreland, you can access the beach club at Mullins.
Lovering's company is very pleased with what Barbados has to offer.
We've seen a range of villas, so right from Heronetta, which is 4 acres of beachfront villa. It's a villa, 5 bedrooms, which you can obviously do weddings, which is the great thing. We saw the Dream, which is just unbelievable villa, and Atelier House up in the north is a modern minimalistic villa, which is just great value for money.
Still to come, news from across the region.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, my darling.
Thanks, Mr. Banks, man. Thanks, man.
Cheers, mate.
One more. Right.
Thanks, man.
Each and every day, we're thankful for something. And we're thankful for you. We couldn't do it without you.
I'm just a DJ, baby, mixing for you.
Only one station delivers the soundtracks of your life.
Hey, we're 94.7 FM, the University of Musical Diversity, the most frequently frequented frequency in the Caribbean. I'm the Admiral.
Put on your dancing shoes and get on the dance floor. We've got all of your classic jams right here at 94.7 FM with me, Jaquila, in the midday.
It's Valentino 10.0 all over your radio right here on 94.7 every weekday afternoon, 2 until 7. It's your afternoon getaway. So join me right here, the greatest hits of the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and now.
94.7 FM.
Days after cancer patients were turned away at the San Fernando General Hospital, the health minister says there is a global shortage of oncology drugs. He told the Trinidad and Tobago Parliament that government intends to change the way it procures medication as substandard drugs are making their way into the country.
1 or 2 times come for chemo and it didn't have no chemo, nobody mixing, nobody can mix it, you have to go back without.
With growing concern about the availability of oncology medication and other drug shortages, Health Minister Terence Deyalsingh is admitting that taxpayers are not getting value for money.
And let me admit that. Our taxpayers are being shortchanged year after year, administration after administration, when you can't get certain drugs.
With that admission, Minister Deyalsingh says a lack of oncology medication is not unique to this country.
There is a global shortage of many major classes of drugs, both in the private sector and in the public sector. And unfortunately, oncology drugs is one of those.
Minister Deyalsingh says this country is prone to shortages because of its size and often not considered a priority in companies' distribution chains. But the problem goes beyond that. According to the health minister, some of the drugs that citizens are being administered are not effective. According to him, there have been complaints that CDAP drugs are ineffective, and he says PAHO has provided anecdotal evidence that substandard medication is being brought into this country.
Some of the drugs that has found its way into our supply chain are not even authorized to be sold nationwide in India. They are authorized to be sold in a state. So we are redoing the regulatory, we are looking at that issue.
However, Minister Deyalsingh is promising to fix this in the next cycle of drugs that are purchased.
Still in Trinidad, thousands of state company employees may be facing unemployment soon. PSA President Watson Duke told reporters that he has information the government is targeting a number of state companies for major cutbacks. We have more in this CNC3 report.
The Minister of Finance said earlier this week the unemployment rate was up by only 0.6% when compared to the same period the year before, translating to about 4,000 job losses. And today, PSA President Watson Duke says he has information alleging a multi-company governmental blacklist that could see some 7,000 employees losing jobs.
I have been shown a list, a hit list, for workers in this country. NAMDEFCO, ADB, Agricultural Development Bank, Chagaramas Development Authority, Water and Sewage Authority, NIHERS, Metal Industries Company, Customs and Excise, Board of Inland Revenue.
He adds many state companies are running out of funds and the trouble that is brewing will exacerbate the trauma people are already facing.
This is an SOS to the Prime Minister. Start governing well. People are feeling the burden of your so-called manufactured adjustment in Tobago. The cargo boat is something that we can refer to as an insult to the people.
Likening Prime Minister Rowley to former Uganda President Idi Amin, who was known for his brutal regime and crimes against humanity, Duke warned Dr. Rowley a revolution worse than 1970 and 1990 would emerge if he is not careful how he manages people. He then called on all unions, despite bad relations, to band together for the sake of workers.
The murder toll in St. Lucia for 2017 has risen to 22. This after a 22-year-old man who was shot on Sunday morning passed away in hospital. The man was shot in the chest. Another man was also injured in a shooting that occurred minutes earlier. It has not been determined if the two shooting incidents are linked. Over to Guyana now. The $138 million Chedi Jagan International Airport expansion project is moving ahead full speed. Despite some challenges, the government and the contractors are optimistic of meeting the December 2017 deadline.
Expansion works to the Chedi Jagan International Airport are moving apace, and although the rainy season is upon us, contractors are hoping to pull through so as to reach the December 2017 deadline. Monies provided for the project so far for 2017 is almost expended, and the Ministry of Public Infrastructure will be going to the Exim Bank of China to seek further financing for the project. The media on Friday took a tour of areas where expansion works are currently ongoing. Some areas are 30% completed, according to persons overseeing the project. Minister David Patterson told media operatives that his ministry has asked contractors to pull their weight in order to bring the project in on time.
We are in what we call the final lap. As you know, the background, the time and the period for this contract to be finished is this year, 2017. All the finance and the monies have to be expended this year. So in the coming few months, there will be an increased amount of activities, particularly in the terminal buildings.
Of the US $138 million, the government of Guyana contributed $12 million US. $79 million US was expended on works, and almost $4 million was paid to a consultancy firm. So far, most of the relocation works have been completed.
Well, we'll give you a peek into the world of sports in just a moment, but before we get to that, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.